Okay, and good comms there from crew that they are ready and configured for their return time.
That's
and
great
an aspect of that is to wrap up our discussion about training. That's a major training point for crew, understanding how their return phase is going to look so that they know, let's go ahead and call ground and let them know that we're ready for maintaining it. So training really is at the heart of any successful mission. You plan, you train, you fly in that order.
Yeah, exactly. Training prepares every astronaut, even those very experienced like Peggy Whitson, and she also did retraining with the AX-4 crew. It's important for the crew to train together. But this prepares them for any phase, any potential scenario in their mission.
Exactly right.
The inside
and missions
of the
like this
capsule,
are important milestones for everyone involved, from the crew members who fly to those that they represent, to the host of scientists and engineers around the world who have an opportunity for their research or their technology to be tested in microgravity. Everyone learns from these missions. And for Axiom Space, this is at the heart of why we do these missions. We're building opportunities for others to advance what is possible.
I really wish we
didn't
have
and we want to be able, we want to enable every human everywhere to take part in this.
Unfortunately, it's not that
after
easy
a beautiful
to
launch on June 25th, the AX-4 crew docked with the International Space Station a little over a day later, opening the hatch and greeting the Expedition 73 crew on June 26th.
During re-entry, it's a lot
the crew shared some good words and a welcoming ceremony, and an astronaut pinning that we don't have there,
Starlink antennas actually,
before quickly getting to work on their extensive itinerary.
And when Dragon has been able to use Starlink,
it's been because it had the laser links and outreach objectives, ranging from human physiology to space radiation impact studies, and even some gardening while they were there.
It would actually be a very bad day.
So this crew maintained a very full timeline. But they prepared for this. Part of their training
was jettisoned.
Each crew member wanted to ensure that every minute of this mission was utilized and that all of their objectives were hit.
So
Peggy, Shukes, Suave, and Tibor were ready to work with their time on board. Over the course of 18 days on board the station, they accomplished over 60 research activities, as well as more than 20 outreach events. But as the time on station came to a close, the AX-4 crew participated in a brief farewell ceremony where they said their goodbyes to the Expedition 73 crew.
But the sort of lasers,
now, for more details on the incredible work performed by this crew on orbit, check out axiomspace.com to see more.
To the best of my knowledge, all trunk-based, so at this point,
I love that this crew did so much outreach. 20 events in 18 days is pretty remarkable.
They have to communicate with ground stations.
Very impressed, plus the 60 experiments on top of that. So.
Even when they have the Starlink lasers as well,
to be able to conduct those
it's not always
for the people of their countries who may not have a chance to talk to an astronaut to understand why are we going to space.
Depending on where
now they have a better understanding of that.
You might have to
like
point to
earlier,
a position
get them
where,
started
for example,
Let
your
them
solar
understand
panels
the passion of it. I know that my nieces, my
and
nephew, right? They're excited about space. They want to be involved in space too. So I can only imagine getting a call from Tibor, getting a call from Suave, and understanding
what should I prioritize, right?
That would be so awesome. Now we are expecting that blackout period coming up here in just about a couple of minutes. Now this blackout period. This is when the Dragon spacecraft re-enters back into the Earth's atmosphere. What's going to happen is there's going to be a lot of plasma buildup as it's getting more through the atmosphere. And that plasma is getting to about 3,500 degrees Fahrenheit, building up around the spacecraft. So we will be losing comms. This is expected. Today we're expecting it to last about 6 to 7 minutes, and then we'll regain comms. And you'll probably hear the core after the expected blackout period time has ended.
They also
make some comms, some calls to the crew until they regain the comms and get confirmation from the crew that they can communicate with each other.
That's exactly right. You bring up a good point. An expected loss of comm, or sometimes you hear loss of signal or LOS.
It fires the Dracos to keep itself in the right orientation.
It is planned for.
And also use its own body to...
Mission operators, flight controllers work through that to understand when are we going to be able to have and maintain
and so you can use that to lessen the G loads, for example. So it fires those thrusters to be able to put itself in the right orientation to use that lift and whatnot.
This 5 minutes, right, based on the physics you discussed of the vehicle heating up,
those that
it's going to happen, and ground crews can predict for that and work around it. But it's a good reminder that we're waiting for those verbal cues, not just visual cues that we'll get. We've been able to see some
is already firing there on the right-hand side to the bottom.
But also, be looking for visual cues later, right? Good parachute deploy.
We're
also listening, though, for good verbal cues. So we heard this a minute ago, Commander Peggy Whitson was calling down saying the crew is in a good configuration for
so that they are
us to go
aware
into this
of
period
what kind of sounds they'll hear.
And we do expect that blackout period has probably begun at this point. And speaking of visual cues, I've had the opportunity to talk to some of the astronauts that have flown on our Dragon spacecraft, and they've said it's kind of one of the most spectacular sights they've seen. With different, they said it looks like sparks outside of the window, but with multiple different colors, multiple different looks of what that plasma heating up around the vehicle looks like. So they should be experiencing that right now. The AX-4 crew still inside of the Dragon spacecraft. Again, this blackout period will last approximately 6 to 7 minutes. And again, we won't hear any comms throughout this period until the expected blackout time is complete, and then we'll start hearing comms from the core calling out to the crew.
Dragon capsule splashdown shirts.
As we begin the second half of entry, Dragon is now beginning to flush nitrox into the cabin and continuing to top off the AX-4 crew's suits with cool air. Again, this is what will allow the cabin temperature to remain comfortable while, as I mentioned, the external temperatures reach 3,500 degrees Fahrenheit. The heat shield is pointing forward, leading the spacecraft to the landing site. Dragon's primary heat shield is comprised of Pika 3.0, which stands for Phenolic Impregnated Carbon Ablator. First-generation Pika was first developed by NASA for studying and sampling comets within our solar system. SpaceX then partnered with NASA to develop Pika X, which was the second-generation product used on all Dragon 1 commercial resupply missions that successfully resupplied the space station on 20 missions. Pika 3.0 was developed specifically for use on Dragon as we prepared to begin flying crew with enhanced structural and thermal properties that optimized the heat shield and drove down cost and mass. The remainder of the crew Dragon spacecraft is composed primarily of a SpaceX proprietary ablative material. It's another class of thermal protection, which is lighter weight versus Pika and protects the underlying composite structure during re-entry to ensure the structural capabilities are maintained. Now while Dragon will experience temperatures well over 3,000 degrees Fahrenheit during peak re-entry conditions, the characteristics of the TPS or thermal protection systems, coupled with the ECLIS environmental control and life support system in the pressurized interior will ensure that the AX-4 crew will stay cool and comfortable during all the phases of re-entry through splashdown with all that heat surrounding them.
Well, now, as AX-4 set a new benchmark for private astronaut missions with the most research activities executed aboard an Axiom space mission to the International Space Station to date.
Or something like that,
with over 60 experiments representing 31 countries, the mission showcased the growing global interest in leveraging low Earth orbit for scientific discovery. The research portfolio included 8 technology demonstrations, 12 life science investigations, and 27 research projects.
NASAspaceflight.com on
this
Facebook.
research spanned a wide range of disciplines, from cancer biology to regenerative medicine, even artificial intelligence, agriculture, and material science. And this further demonstrates how low Earth orbit is a platform for innovation. Now, many of these studies were designed to address challenges both in space and on Earth, such as improving disease modeling, enhancing food security, and developing smarter autonomous systems.
People returning from space,
the scale and diversity of the AX-4 research portfolio reflect a shift toward more collaborative science on orbit together, positioning commercial astronaut missions as catalysts
right now it's
for advancing knowledge and solving
where
real-world
we are
problems.
in that blackout period.
Jesse, I think this is one of the most important things about a mission like this, is it allows us an opportunity to understand
all of those radio transmissions
we have a number of problems that we're trying to address on Earth.
So we're just waiting to see.
It is a unique opportunity to be able to go to low Earth orbit and understand some of the key aspects of that kind of research.
Once the capsule approaches a little bit more,
really allow
the splashdown sites,
for those
usually
kind of problems to
they capture that either from the WB-57 cameras or from the ground cameras. They capture that.
Problems for over 2 decades
do you think we're going to see the dolphins?
And that research needs to continue.
It's a different
needs to keep going.
place, because that was
a lot of people don't realize that some of the stuff that we have that seem very simple and common to us here on Earth actually sometimes come from the research that happens in space.
Exactly right. Exactly right. One of the things we were talking about earlier is a major aspect of long-duration spaceflight is the radiation impacts.
And then,
I know for me personally, I thought one of the really interesting
we've got a really
research
great
topics that was or research experiments that was being conducted on orbit
why not use oversized cargo planes?
Was looking
like
at what are the different materials and properties that we can use
Dragon.
to protect
We talked about how they
space radiation.
are recovering in California, but they're
during the
bringing
mission,
it back to Florida.
we had
to do
a great call between
and
Peggy,
launch again. So
Suave, and
the Dragon
Dr. Lucy Lowe
back
with
to California
with Axiom Space,
and also Benjamin. Thank you very much
to discuss exactly what it is that we're trying to protect.
Oh,
and understand why space radiation is so difficult to wrap. So, missions
but
like
to quickly answer that question, it's just probably down to
we are now seeing great confirmations of
it's a lot easier to
the
just
Dragon
truck
spacecraft making
it
its
takes
return
a
back
few
to
days,
Earth
but
right
still,
and
it's
while we
not
are
like
in a
they really
blackout
need to quickly
period,
turn
this
around the
is an
capsule
excellent
for a
view.
launch.
Seeing Dragon
we
from
need
the ground
a crew mission
as it's
next
re-entering
week or something,
back
right?
into Earth's atmosphere. Now that blackout
they
period is
don't need that
expected
sort of
to conclude at 2:25 a.m. Pacific time. So just a couple more minutes here,
that was
and then
great.
hopefully we'll get some comms back between the core and the
coming
crew.
back home.
But in the meantime, at least got some cool views of the crew
for humans
almost back down here on Earth.
Exactly right, and making that kind of visual confirmation is such an important part of what we're tracking today. We're tracking a lot of very dynamic operations, and so being able to see what we see on the screen there is incredibly important for mission controllers.
Dragon, SpaceX, comm check.
Again, we may not hear the crew until they do get those comms back, that acquisition of signal.
Dragon, SpaceX, comm check.
Again, we may not hear the crew until they do get those comms back, that acquisition of signal.
Dragon, SpaceX, comm check.
We have you loud and clear.
Dragon, we have you the same. Expect automated chute deployment.
Dragon, we have you loud and clear.
G-forces.
Dragon,
Dragon, we have you the same. Expect automated chute deployment.
And great news, as you heard there, we got comms from the X4 crew.
That's exactly what we're waiting.
And great news, as you heard there, we got comms from the X4 crew.
That's exactly what we're waiting for, and I love that you can hear the excitement in Peggy's voice too.
Yeah,
she's done this before.
From that
maybe a few times.
We are getting
great live view on your screen inside of Dragon as they are re-entering the Earth's atmosphere. And we did hear confirmation that there will be the automatic drogue and parachute deployment coming up here shortly.
Altitude for drogue chute deploy.
And on your screen with that great live view.
GPS converge, expect nominal altitude for drogue chute deploy.
And we're going to hear a lot of comms.
Copy, nominal.
The seats will also rotate to prepare for splashdown.
We're going to heir a lot of comms back and forth throughout these last 5 minutes here as the core will be calling out their altitude as they're making their way down, as well as when the drogue parachutes
Some people mentioning in chat that they saw it from California.
And then as they get closer and closer to Earth, just keeping the crew updated with how close they are before splashdown so that they can expect that splashdown.
Exactly right. Exactly right. And those are the things that crew that you're seeing there on the left side of your screen are following along with their their onboard telemetry. And for you at home as well, you can see on your screens as well things like vehicle speed, vehicle altitude. All those are really important metrics that we're trying to understand as part of the visual confirmations, the audio communications, or the verbal communications that we've gotten with crew. We're also getting vehicle communications.
There we go, seat rotation.
To all understand how we're looking as we lead up to these next 4 minutes before.
And there you can see on your screen, the seats are rotating for the crew. This prepares them for that splashdown, so they do
brace for drogue window.
They do reorient the crew depending on the dynamic events that are happening, so the crew does lean back during re-entry.
Other people have seen it.
And then they are sitting up a little bit more upright for those drogue and main parachutes to deploy.
That's right. Having them in that position helps distribute the forces correctly so that when they're experiencing that dynamic event, they're as comfortable as they can possibly be.
Yeah.
We love to see.
We're now waiting for confirmation that the Dragon's chutes have deployed coming up here just in under a minute or so. Just prior to the deployment of the initial drogue chutes, Dragon automatically safes the propulsion system. Dragon then deploys its drogue parachutes to stabilize and decelerate the vehicle. Then just before drogue deployment, seats automatically rotate to 26 degrees, which we just saw there, to keep the crew within acceptable G limits for entry and landing. And
those are the drogue
excellent view.
Great view. Drogue parachutes are deployed.
Yep. Now should be coming up on the 4 mains.
Rate nominal.
Look at the speed.
Stroke descent rate nominal.
Is that the moon?
Descent rate nominal, copy.
Again, we're going to hear a lot of comms throughout this next 3 minutes here. This is looking forward on the Dragon spacecraft up at the chutes. The stroke parachutes are fully deployed now, so we do expect those main parachutes to deploy.
The telemetry is
shortly.
indicating already main parachute deployment, and now we're seeing it on video. Look at that.
If you're just joining us, we have now confirmed that the AX-4 crew,
you can see the G
on their return home, is
rapidly
roughly 2.5 minutes out from splashdown, and our main chutes have deployed.
Great.
Main chute descent rate nominal.
1,000 meters for Dragon. Copy. Main chute descent rate nominal. 1,000 meters for Dragon.
Those look to be 4 good chutes.
We copy 1,000 meters.
Great visual
But it was
confirmation
funny how
as
you
well
could
as those
see
comms
the
that the 4
slowdown
main parachutes
on the telemetry
have
first.
deployed. Again, we are going to be slowing down the vehicle from 350 miles per hour all the way down to just about 15, 16 miles per hour by the time that the vehicle touches down and splashes down into the ocean.
Exactly right. You mentioned these beautiful visual confirmations that we're getting. An important aspect of today's specific
meters.
splashdown is that it's occurring at night.
Californians be like, oh, it's a 5-point
Copy,
earthquake,
800
or something
meters.
like that. We don't wake up, but a sonic boom will rattle everyone.
Commander Peggy Whitson confirming the spacecraft's altitude as it's making its descent into the Pacific Ocean just off the coast of San Diego in Southern California.
600 meters.
Yes, love that. It's coming off the coast of my
600
hometown.
meters.
600 meters.
600 meters.
And at 600 meters, we're just under a minute before that
Signal a
expected
bit wonky from
splashdown.
the WB-57.
Landing in
Hopefully we
water
get
is a
some
lot simpler
views from
and more
closer
reliable.
down to the ocean.
Provides a little bit of margin against unlikely
yeah.
parachute
Ooh,
issues.
that's why.
We
Because
did
there's a
have to learn how to
cloud
make
layer.
Dragon waterproof as
copy
we are
is
splashing
400
down
meters.
into
Reminder to
the
brace for
ocean.
splashdown.
Classic California.
SpaceX copies 400 meters. Reminder to brace for splashdown.
I'm guessing they don't care about the... Ah, look at that. The drogue chutes still coming down.
That's a pretty cool view.
Yeah.
I feel like that's not a view we often have because at this point we're so... There we
maintaining
go. We have
There we go.
the vehicle signature
Dragon
through things like
race
cloud layer and any kind
through
of
the fog.
atmospheric disturbance allows
That
us to maintain visual contact with the
quite
vehicle
the view.
as it's making its final descent.
Of course, California will have a
landing.
foggy cruise splashdown.
And it's a little foggy, as you can
Yeah.
see there.
Yeah, Pacific fog is rolling in.
We've got some very bright lights as Dragon. You can see the ocean there.
working their
Dragon
way-
is about to touch down in just a few seconds here.
SpaceX and Axiom support teams that will be present
splashdown.
for the next
And
phase
working
their way towards the vehicle are the SpaceX and Axiom support teams that will be present for the next phase of the cruise of our splashdown safe landing, and then we'll move into the phases
At this point,
of this
we'll be
mission,
waiting
which
for,
are really
let's recover
for
the vehicle,
confirmation
let's recover
of
the
the
crew,
crew,
let's make our
cruise,
assessments,
safe
and
landing, and
at
then
that
we'll
point,
move
we'll
into
be
the
covering.
phases of the
And
of this
we have
mission, which are really
splashdown of the
let's recover the vehicle, let's
AX-4
recover the
crew
crew,
back
let's make
on
our
planet
assessments,
Earth.
and
Welcome home.
at that point we'll be covering.
And we have splashdown of the
Welcome
AX-4
home,
crew
indeed.
back
So
on planet Earth.
Now they have
Splashdown.
the series
We are
of
in
smaller...
Stable 1.
SpaceX copies splashdown and stable 1.
We
On
are
behalf of
in
SpaceX,
Stable
welcome home.
1.
SpaceX copies splashdown and stable 1. On behalf of
And thanks
SpaceX,
for
welcome
the
home.
great ride and the safe trip, and Grace is happy to be back. And thanks for the great ride
Have you
and
back home
the safe
safely as
trip,
well.
and Grace is happy to be back.
We are happy to have you back home safely as well.
So you can see some of the smaller boats that will approach
some words between the core
before
and
the main
our
recovery
commander
vessel
Peggy
is able to
Whitson.
get in there
As the Axiom-4 crew has made it back home,
are in progress.
Splashdown at
recovery personnel are en route. SpaceX, for your awareness, SISTI system verifications are in progress. I will report back when recovery personnel are en route.
Yeah, so now you can see. Yeah, so now you can see a couple fast boats are going to be approaching the Dragon spacecraft. They're going to start with making sure that the spacecraft is safe. They're going to do some sniff checks. They're going to pick up those main parachutes
when they
as
stop
Dragon splash down. The chutes were immediately cut to make sure there's no safety issues there. So we'll pick up those main parachutes up.
California reentries.
It's interesting because they're panning around,
that the spacecraft
and
is
you can see some of the
our
lights
recovery
from
vessel
the
Shannon can begin to
and the sky glowing orange.
And begin
but
the
yeah, so the whole
process.
reason was because prior to doing these reentries over California,
on recovery
so with Dragon
of our
2,
Dragon spacecraft with
they
the AX4
started doing
crew.
the splashdown
Dragon has
off the
already
coast of Florida,
autonomously completed
so
several
that they could be
steps to save
closer to
itself
the
following
refurbishment
splashdown.
and launch facilities, right?
So for those of you
so
just
thought,
joining us,
okay,
the return of
that's
AX4
cool.
has
The
gone
problem is,
smoothly so far.
you cannot do
and we
what they
just
did
got
with,
great confirmation
with
the crew
Dragon
has
1.
splashed
Dragon
down.
1, the
So
version
Dragon
of
successfully
Dragon
re-entered
that's
the Earth's
behind
atmosphere, followed by
Jesse there.
deployment of its
And
parachutes
so
to slow the
what they
spacecraft down to a
did with that
gentle 15
version
miles per
was
hour.
they
At
did
that
the
point, they
return,
successfully
and
splashed
then
down in the Pacific
they
Ocean
jettisoned the
at
trunk. So the
2:31
trunk
a.m.
will just
Pacific time,
re-enter,
off the coast of Southern California.
you know, a little
So at
bit
this point, like you
uprange
mentioned, Jesse, we're just waiting for
the
Dragon's recovery of that
capsule will
from
re-enter,
Shannon.
because the capsule has a
Upon
little bit of
detection
lift,
of
and so it
landing,
can
Dragon
fly a
automatically
little bit further
releases the
down
main
range, right?
parachutes to prevent
But
wind from
it
pulling
will
the spacecraft.
essentially have
Dragon then
to
automatically
re-enter
saves
over the
any
ocean. The
pyrotechnics
problem is
still
when you're coming
present
into
on the
Florida,
vehicle and may automatically perform
there's
additional minor
continental
system
US in the way
reconfigurations.
if you are
The astronauts
coming
remain
from the north,
seated
for
and
example. If
in
you're
their
coming
seats
from
at
the
this
south,
point,
you're
but
probably
the
hitting
onboard
Mexico
air conditioning
or
keeps
the Yucatan
temperatures
Peninsula
in
and
check
things like that,
inside the
especially if you are
spacecraft, and the
splashing in the
communications
Gulf.
systems on board remain powered so the crew can
the
continue to
way
communicate.
to solve that, they just
And as we're
jettisoned the
watching,
trunk
SpaceX has two
before the
fast boats in the
return,
recovery fleet,
and they
which
kept
move
the
very
trunk
quickly to
in
get
orbit.
to the splashdown
The
point.
problem with that is that
And those are being
kept
followed by
the trunk in
Shannon,
orbit
the main
as
recovery vessel,
as
which will
space
move into
junk,
position
essentially.
upwind of the spacecraft.
And so over time, eventually
fast
that
boats
orbit
have very
decayed due
specific
to
roles here
atmospheric
in these
drag,
operations.
because there's still a little bit
First
of
fast
atmosphere
boat
up there.
makes initial contact,
And so
is
it came
focused on
down
immediate safety
randomly.
inspection of the
It didn't
vehicle,
come down
checking for vehicle
over
integrity
a well-known
and any presence
location,
of hypergolic
right?
propellant vapors.
And so what that meant
This
was
ensures
that
that it's safe for Shannon to
sometimes
approach
some
the
of the
Dragon
pieces of the
spacecraft.
trunk survived re-entry.
Now, once Dragon is cleared
And so
for
you
full
may have
approach,
seen
the team
certain
begins
reports
rigging the
out there
spacecraft for
over
water
the past
recovery
few
by the
years
recovery ship.
where certain parts of
Second fast
Dragon
boat is
have come
responsible
down,
for
like the
parachute
trunk,
recovery
have come
and
down
also serves a
over
redundant
Australia,
boat
for
to the
example, or
first.
Canada,
So we'll
or
see
for
a team
example, more
member.
recently,
We'll
North
also see a team
Carolina.
member on a
Right?
jet ski
And
helping to
so
gather up the now detached
that is not
parachutes that you
good,
mentioned came off.
and they changed that.
Yeah, and
in
it'll
order
take
to
a little
change
over
that,
10
they
minutes for the
reverted
recovery
back
crew to
to
complete
doing
their
the
safety
return
checks.
first,
Then once they're
then
complete, the team
jettison
will
the
begin
trunk.
preparing
But
Dragon
in
to be
order to be
lifted
able to do
into the
that, they
recovery
needed a
vessel.
huge
As part of the preparation for this lift, one member
area
of the
of
recovery
water to be
team
able
will
to
climb on top
commit
of the
to that sort
spacecraft
of
so
new,
that they can attach
or
Dragon's
rather
hoist
come back
rings
to
and
the
connect
re-entry
the lifting
profile
lines.
that they had previously.
Now it will take us less than an hour to
And the
raise
Pacific
Dragon
Ocean
to the
is
recovery
full
boat and remove the
water
crew
for
from the
that.
spacecraft.
It's a very nice
and then
area
after medical
to
checkouts, the crew will return
dispose the
to
trunk
shore
without
by
hitting
helicopter
land.
and then
so
be
that's why
flown
they
back
went back
to Houston.
to the West Coast.
And each of these next steps are entirely dependent on the status of the crew.
Fast boats alongside
Axiom
in
Space
1 minute. Dragon SpaceX, we have pulled go for recovery personnel approach. Expect fast boats alongside in 1 minute.
So when Dragon was descending under its parachute, we had that WB-57 view, which is
and with that
often
call
like
from
IR.
core to
And so Dave
Peggy
and I also
to Commander
saw
Peggy Whitson, you can
Bogus
see now
in
the
chat
fast boat
wondering,
making the two
there
fast
were a
boats rather
couple
making the
bright
approach
spots
to the
glowing
Dragon
on
that
the
you see in the middle of your
parachute on
screen with
that
that flashing
IR.
green beacon.
Are those like reflective
Now, as we
IR
mentioned, Axiom
markers or
Space's chief
something
medical
to make it
officer is
easier
on
to
the main
find?
recovery ship Shannon
Do we-
and is
do
ready to
we
put
know
eyes
anything
on this
about
crew for the first
those
time since they departed quarantine
areas
together.
on the parachute?
And our medical teams will be with them every step of the way home.
Probably, yeah, because they have visual markers, right? It would make sense also to have
It is nighttime,
infrared
so we do have
markers
this
as well.
infrared camera to help us
So that,
see a little bit more
infrared
clearly.
cameras can
That's
also
the
pick that
Dragon
up.
spacecraft
Some people
in
were
the middle of your
asking
screen there.
why the green and red lights, those are navigation lights for port and starboard. essentially the left or the right-hand side of the spacecraft. And if you think spacecraft, because they're in space, they cannot have left and right, they absolutely
Dragon
do.
spacecraft. Excuse me.
And Crispy will probably be, that's because the British, we used to do that. The green and red lights on ships. And
we have that for
something, I don't know.
Nights like this
been a
where
while
it's a little
since I
bit
looked that
harder
up.
to see the orientation of the vehicle, so those
And I
red and
see
green lights
the,
help us understand
videos
which
and
side of the
photos
vehicle
coming in
and orientation
from
that
all
we
of you
are approaching.
watching who happened to see the re-entry from the West Coast. I'm already taking a look at those, and those are really cool. Thank you for sending those along.
And it does look like they are pulling a main chute out of the water there. Again, those detach immediately as soon as the spacecraft splashes down. This helps prevent the wind from dragging the spacecraft after it's splashed down, and helps keep the crew safe. But we do recover those
what are the things
main
they're doing
parachutes,
right now?
keep them out of the water.
I think some of the boats are sort
And
of,
as we just discussed, each of these fast boats has a very specific role that they play.
maybe, but the other boat that's
that is all part
approaching,
of, again,
they're
the operations,
using gas
the ground
detectors,
operations
right?
that
And they're
support
getting closer
the
and
retrieval and
closer
recovery
to
of the spacecraft,
the Dragon capsule,
as
and
well
then
as the
eventually
X4 crew.
one
So
of
all of
them
these are part of the
is
ground
actually going to get
training that's
onto the
required
capsule itself,
in order
right?
to pull off those operations safely.
Yeah,
and
the very
successfully.
first thing that
So even
they
though we're
try to
having,
do,
splashdown at night, right?
it's a bit in
we're
parallel,
able
as you were mentioning.
ensure
One of the
that
boats
we're
goes out and tries to
executing
pick up
smoothly,
the
but executing
parachutes.
successfully.
They reuse sometimes these parachutes, by the way, but at least they do recover them, or try to recover them. And then another team, there you can see there's a guy with a stick, so to speak, right? And they are doing what are called sniff checks, which is very graphic, but it kind of gets the point across, right? Which is they have this detector at the end of this pole, and they approach Dragon to make sure that there are no toxic fumes, because Dragon uses hydrazine
should be seeing a crew
and
member
hybrid goals to be able to power the Draco thrusters. So they approach the capsule with that sensor, that detector, to make sure that it is good and safe for approach.
The spacecraft to be lifted
Usually
out
the
of
water itself acts
it's all part of a coordination, a choreography
sort of like
of
as
events,
a neutralizer of that toxic
spacecraft
material.
is in the water.
So
what are the next
one
few
of the
steps
things that you might see actually once they pick it up and put it on the boat is they flush with a hose.
This is a very key moment.
They sort of
right now you can
hose
see them
the
doing
spacecraft with water to remove some of the
making
remaining,
sure that there's no
toxic gases that may be
gas or
lingering
chemicals around the vehicle,
because
and
the
that
water
it's,
does a great job at neutralizing those
actually
hypergoals.
approach and climb onto the
But yeah,
spacecraft.
once that's done, then they hop onto the capsule, they start the rigging and
recovery
preparation
crew is wearing
for bringing
the
it into the
PPE
capsule,
necessary to perform these
into the recovery
operations.
boat. At the same time, the recovery boat approaches the area, because it's usually a bit further away. That's why they deploy these fast boats. By the way, I just noticed the fast boat itself also has the green and red lights.
Even in this phase of the mission, we're excited crews home, but
even
the
the
drone
drone up there.
We're taking this time to make sure that we're operating smoothly, that we're operating safely, so that we ensure a safe return for the crew on board the vessel and back home to their families and teams.
Yeah, we call conclusion of the mission when the crew egresses the spacecraft, and egress means to exit the spacecraft.
A couple different views. This one is, I believe, from Mike Anderson. I think I've seen your name in chat here a couple times too. Look at that view. That's
some calm
why we
waters
always
there,
say
which is great.
Southern
California,
try to take a look at it, because
Pacific Ocean.
it is just a
as we splash down
streak
off
of
the coast of San
plasma
Diego
across
today.
the sky.
Rigging is in progress. Approximately 25 minutes until capsule lift. Hypergol sweeps and unfired ordnance checks are nominal. Please confirm crew are ready for approximately 25 minutes until capsule lift. We have SpaceX flight surgeon standing by. Please confirm crew are ready for post-splashdown PMC. Copy that, Dragon. The next call you hear will be from flight surgeon on Dragon to ground privatized. Copy that, Dragon. The next call you hear will be from flight surgeon on Dragon to ground
PMC
privatized.
stands for private medical check. So they have their own private internal communication with a medic to be able to, check out like
those comms.
how are you
the
doing
team is
after
going
the
to do
splashdown
some
and the
medical
reentry and
checks.
whatnot.
They are going
How
to
do
do
you
that
feel?
in a private.
Are you going to need any help?
And that's what
Are
those
you going to
comms
need
were
any
confirming that
special
they're switching the
thing,
nets that
right?
they will be communicating on. And this is just to make
But
sure
yeah.
that the crew is
Ooh,
feeling okay
more shots.
through all those dynamic events. While for us watching
Who's this
Dragon
one from?
re-enter
This one
the Earth's
is
atmosphere from
Otto.
afar, there's a lot going on in
Ooh.
that spacecraft there with the crew. So just making sure that the crew is feeling good.
It says from the valley
and
in
checking
Los
in
Angeles.
with how they're doing.
Exactly. It's an important touch point for
We're getting people
kind of reaching
also
a
on
key
Facebook
milestone
as well.
on the return trip home. As just mentioned, it's a very dynamic phase of flight. In those private medical conferences or PMCs with a SpaceX flight surgeon, really allow
That one
ground
is
teams
from
to be able to make an initial
Tom
assessment
Hall.
of crew. While
thank
the
you
team
so
is
much.
also
Thank
the
you, all
ground
of you,
teams
for sending
outside
in
are continuing to work
these
that rigging. You
photos.
mentioned it
It
take
is
about 25 minutes.
So cool to see.
For crew
If y'all are
to
still
rig
in
and then
chat, I would
hoist
love to.
the Dragon spacecraft into
I'd love to
the
know
recovery
more.
vessel. So
where,
while
like,
those
where
operations
were
are
you, where'd you
happening,
go
crew will
to
also be talking with
see this
with
re-entry?
ground medical personnel, just to get an understanding of, hey, how's everybody doing? How are you looking forward to it?
Yeah. And they did confirm that the vehicle was safe to approach. They did some hypergol checks. And they also checked the thrusters that did not fire to make sure that there are no leaks from those thrusters. We do have Super Dracos on the vehicle in case of an abort emergency during ascent. We did not need those thrusters on this mission.
So these boats are going to,
and again, they are
once
only
again,
used
like Alex
for
said,
the
slowly
ascent
get
portion.
closer,
But we do want to make
and
sure
now
that
they're
throughout the
really
mission,
approaching
as the
capsule
Dragon
to get
spacecraft was docked
alongside
to
it.
the International Space Station for 18 days, that everything is still good and safe, again, to complete these final recovery operations.
Keep an eye out in that water. See if you spot any dolphins like we had on Crew 9 for sure.
And again, it's a little dark because it's very early morning, but you can see the little window on Dragon and the light. Little light inside there as the crew is patiently waiting.
And
recovery
this
operations.
view is actually from our
It's a very
own
different view
Jay
that they're having outside
DeShetler.
that window than they had for their flight up
Where was
and their
that
flight
from?
home.
Yes.
But all the
That was
same,
from-
I'm sure
shot
that they're
from
also
the
glad to say,
lick
hey,
of-
we're home.
From Lick Observation.
If you're just joining us from home, you are
It's always
seeing
so
live
cool 'cause you can
views of
see,
the
despite
Dragon
the capsule
spacecraft
descending,
that has returned home
it
from the
visually
Axiom-4
appears as
mission.
if it's getting higher in the sky
Now
just because it's
unprivatized.
They're
getting
launching
so
on
much.
June 25th. The Axiom-4 mission.
Dragon
have you loud and
SpaceX,
clear
Dragon to
on
ground
Dragon
is now
ground.
unprivatized. Comm check. Copy, Dragon. We have you the same.
We have you loud and clear on Dragon Ground.
Copy, Dragon. We have you the same.
You can see the colloquial named Dragon Rider up there climbing on the Dragon capsule.
You can now see on the screen
Be
SpaceX
advised, we're
support
going to step
personnel
into transitioning
beginning the
the
rigging
forward link.
procedures.
Comm will be unavailable
to
for
ensure that the
approximately
Dragon
5
spacecraft is
minutes.
rigged.
Be advised, we're going to step into transitioning the forward link. Comm will be unavailable
Dragon
for
copies,
approximately
5
5
minutes.
minutes. Rigging continues nominally.
Dragon copies, 5 minutes. LOS.
Again, the Corps just keeping the crew updated
Always funny to
with
see how toasty it
the
looks
operations that
like.
they're performing. They won't have comms for about 5 minutes.
Absolutely.
But rigging is
I know
continuing, as we can see there.
It was always fun
with
seeing
the
them
recovery crew
return
member
into the Port Canaveral area, getting
standing
that
on top of the
up-close view of
spacecraft.
the, I guess, toasted marshmallow,
Working very
as you
important
could
procedures
say.
for the next
It really
phase
does
of,
look like one.
of the AX-4
You
mission.
can almost see some
And
of
for
the
those of you who've been following
patterns.
along since June 25th, when the Falcon
Yeah.
9 lifted off from Kennedy
And
39A,
that shell, like the
this was a
actual
pristine
pressure
new
vessel
Dragon.
where the people
That crew had
are living.
the privilege
It's like
and the pleasure
inside.
of naming Grace.
Sounds like a
And,
trick of the eye, so
now
to
it's gone
speak,
through
right?
its first mission.
All of that you see
and
out
landed
there
back
is
safely in the
just a
Pacific
shell
Ocean.
that they
You
can
see,
remove and replace.
exactly what the spacecraft goes
And
through on its
it's
return
made out
home.
of
But
of
very much a sign of a successful mission.
Interestingly named material they call SPAM, which stands for SpaceX Proprietary
I love the
Ablative
tradition
Material.
that the first crew that flies in the spacecraft gets
And
to
so
name
those are like
the
panels that they
spacecraft.
can remove. They can access
And
like
Peggy
the interior
Whitson had some
propulsion
great words
systems,
on
the
why they
propellant
named
tanks and
the
everything.
spacecraft Grace.
And so,
which
and
I
they
think
can
is
just, put
amazing.
back
We've got a
new panels.
great fleet of Dragon spacecraft.
And that's why when they launch one of these, even
and
though they may have flown
Commander
multiple
Peggy
times
Whitson,
into space,
she's
they
actually
still
our
look
third frequent
white
flyer.
and clean and everything. And
Our first frequent flyer was Michael
toasted.
Lopez Alegria from Axiom Space.
Yep.
Second being Jared Isaacman when he flew on the Polaris Dawn mission. And now Peggy Whitson flying for a second time on a Dragon spacecraft. At SpaceX, we're trying to make these vehicles reusable, just like aircraft when you
where the
fly and fly over again multiple times a day. And we're getting closer and closer to that with the same crew members flying again.
Exactly.
It was a beautiful street.
And it's important to note, right, that kind of
their house.
mission-to-mission lineage, right, allows crew members
just goes to show,
like Peggy Whitson, like Michael Lopez
because you aren't
to better help inform the next crews that are coming with them,
location,
right? The more familiarity
it's
that you
shot
get with
to
the
try
vehicle,
to look what we talk about it with launches all the time
on your mission.
Wherever you are in Florida,
as
step
a personal
outside,
Peggy
try to see a launch.
Super fan. I cannot imagine
so far away.
a more
just
fitting astronaut to be able to give a name to a new vehicle. I love the messaging behind why they chose to name it Grace. And to your point, Jesse, about the frequent flyers, I loved that during launch we could see I don't know if it's a new tradition potentially, but we got to see some boarding passes that SpaceX provided to the AX-4 crew, and because of her frequent flyer status, Peggy Whitson got a gold boarding pass, and I absolutely adore that she was able to have that distinction.
Yes, just add it to her resume.
Yeah, you can add it to the resume. SpaceX frequent flyer.
Yeah, I love the boarding passes. Again, always trying to make it as common as aircraft, planes that we fly on every single day.
Exactly.
And we're still just in the beginning, but I feel like we've made a lot of progress in the last 5 years, and we still have a lot of new things, new missions, and improvements that we want to make to, future spacecraft and launch vehicles. So I'm excited for the future. I really do believe that we could get to aircraft, plane, regular flight, multiple flights a day within our future.
I think we can. And human spaceflight is it's a team sport, and it is something that you are always learning from. No matter how commonplace any of these missions get, right? There is always the amount of training that you put into it to execute that plan, train, fly mentality, and being able to perform these missions, being able to say that Peggy has flown on multiple Dragon spacecraft at this point, kind of highlight that every time she's going to still go through the same training that she did for the last mission, that all these crew members, that all of the ground support personnel are going to be ready to support missions like these from even well before crew is on the launch pad, all the way through splashdown, pulling them onto the recovery vessel here for the Dragon spacecraft. And you can see on your screen both the fast boat and the recovery vessel Shannon making approach to Grace, our Dragon spacecraft.
There you could see what we call the Dragon nest. When the spacecraft is lifted up out of the water, it's going to seat into that ring that you see there at the end of the recovery vessel there. And once the spacecraft is nestled into the nest, it'll translate to a deck that meets the height of where the hatch on the Dragon spacecraft is. That'll enable the crew to egress or exit the spacecraft easily onto a platform in the recovery vessel.
And talking about the crew, Jesse, we've mentioned this idea of this kind of understanding the aspects of spaceflight, as mentioned earlier, being able to do STEM engagement on the mission, but also being able to spend time and honestly, your crew commander being somebody like Peggy Whitson, for Shooks and Suave and Tibor to be able to take that knowledge back to their respective space agencies and to their countries is a huge step forward for what you just mentioned earlier about making sure that that human spaceflight as a team sport continues for everybody to understand what's going on, because now Shooks and Suave and Tibor have a very important distinction, and they now have a very unique perspective on what it takes for a human spaceflight mission to occur. as first time astronauts, they're going to take back all that knowledge from their time on the International Space Station and be able to make huge impacts with their space agencies in their countries.
Yeah, I'm sure they learned a lot from Peggy Whitson, but also the other crew members that are currently on board the International Space Station. They got to interact with so many different people with diverse skills.
Exactly.
And 18 days is quite a long time in space.
It is.
So it's a good amount of time. I believe this is the longest duration for an Axiom space mission so far.
That's right. We heard a lot of those kind of sentiments shared between the AX-4 crew and the Expedition 73 crew currently on the International Space Station during their farewell ceremony, during their undocking last night. It really kind of underscored the aspect of once you're up there, once that hatch is open, it's all one team. Mm-hmm. It is. Like we keep saying, it's a team sport, but once they were in there integrating with the Expedition 73 crew, that AX-4 crew was learning so much more. And it was highlighted in everything that they were able to execute, right? We mentioned earlier over 60 research projects, over 20 STEM engagements, outreach events. Over 18 days, that's an incredible amount of time packed into their timeline, just coupled with sleeping and being there, but also like the aspects that they're not timeline, but engaging with the crew, sharing cultural touch points, understanding each other, getting to learn each other. And they did have the benefit of getting to meet this Expedition 73 crew before their flight. So by the time they were opening that hatch, they kind of knew each other. And I think it's an incredible aspect of this mission for sure.
That's so awesome.
Yeah.
I wonder what their comms were. I'll meet you in space.
Exactly right. I wish I had the ability to say that. That'd be so cool.
One day when we're all able to fly in space.
All right, sounds good. I'll see you in space then.
See you in space, John. Looks like we're getting closer. They are pulling the spacecraft towards the recovery vessel. Looks like we're rigged up, and you can see the hydraulic lift moving forward and down. And then it will begin to lift the spacecraft out of the water and again into that Dragon nest that you see there on the recovery vessel. I think one of my favorite parts is the recovery crew that's on the spacecraft gets to jump into the ocean when they're done.
Yeah.
And it's nighttime in the Pacific, so it might be a little cold.
It will be a little chilly.
But definitely a unique part of the job.
Exactly right. And you can see all the support crew. There was just a fast boat on the screen that made its way off screen there, but you can see the number of support crew that's kind of going into supporting an operation like this. It may look like it's not happening very fast, but there are a lot of steps that each of these crew members are responsible for ensuring that the Dragon spacecraft is pulled into that nest safely but smoothly, and they're working towards that now. There he goes.
Love that. Despite the freezing temperatures, it looks fun.
And he got out of the water pretty fast, so I think you're right about that.
All right. Looks like lift is about to begin.
Those of you just tuning in, the AX-4 crew splashed down off the coast of Southern California a little under 30 minutes ago. And we are now in the
Dragon SpaceX. Rigging is complete. Stand by for capsule lift.
Dragon copies.
Dragon SpaceX. Capsule lift in progress. Brace.
All right, good verbal confirmations there and visual confirmations that we're getting a successful lift.
Dragon copies.
Again, those comms, crew can't see what's happening outside of the spacecraft, so letting the crew know what's happening so they understand, you know, the vehicle moving, what those different feelings are with the spacecraft moving around.
Trying to give crew some level of situational awareness of where they are and where they're going next. So Dragon will remain in the nest during the crew extraction and for the journey back into port. The spacecraft is currently was just lifted, as you saw, and set on the nest. And from here, it'll be centered and oriented. And then from there, Dragon will be translated into the hangar underneath the helipad aboard the ship so that we can then open the hatch. And once open, a SpaceX medical doctor will be the first one in to check on the crew to see if they are ready to egress out of the vehicle. And as we noted earlier, Axiom medical teams are also on the recovery vessel working in tandem with SpaceX staff to assess and assist the crew.
The astronauts will egress, or what we call exit, from Dragon's side hatch, pending spacecraft orientation in the water. Before opening the hatch, the spacecraft's cabin pressure must be equalized with the outside environment. Now, once the hatch is opened, that will be the Axiom-4 crew's first breath of fresh air since boarding Falcon 9 at the start of their mission on June 25th.
And that will be an exciting moment for the crew, I know. But for the crew and also for the ground crews, getting that first confirmation of your crew exiting the spacecraft, getting good medical checks, and then coming out and giving a thumbs up is something everybody wants to be able to see, and we'll be able to see it soon.
Yeah. And it looks like the spacecraft is nestled into the nest.
Dragon SpaceX, welcome aboard the recovery ship. Apology for the delayed call earlier. We are still working to transition the forward link. Recovery personnel are completing their final checks, and I will let you know when we are ready for translation across the deck to the egress platform.
Now, they are de-rigging the spacecraft, but they're also doing some final sniff or leak checks and then covering the thruster locations prior to opening that hatch. Let's just make sure that the vehicle is more than safe for the crew members to exit the vehicle. Again, if you're just now joining us, the Dragon spacecraft has been lifted onto the recovery vessel Shannon. Now the recovery crew is safing the vehicle. They're putting some covers on the thrusters of the vehicle just to ensure, now that the spacecraft is no longer in operation, we don't need those thrusters. They did some sniff checks before they put some covers on it.
SpaceX, comm check.
We have you loud and clear in Dragon.
Copy that, Dragon. We have you the same. Welcome aboard the recovery ship. We are working to troubleshoot the forward link transition. Stand by for translation across the deck. I'll let you know when we're ready for that.
Okay, copy.
The crew is preparing for translation. This is where that Dragon nest is going to move the spacecraft towards the deck, and that deck is going to meet the bottom of the Dragon hatch, and that'll enable the crew to egress or exit the Dragon spacecraft onto a platform on the recovery vessel. And again, the recovery crew looks like they may have finished safing the vehicle in preparation for that translation.
As you mentioned, Jesse, that hatch that you see right in the center of the spacecraft, when we see crew egress from that, SpaceX medical personnel will be there to assess crew and assist them along with other ground support crew out of the spacecraft. And at that point, that will be our first time being able to see the AX-4 crew since their liftoff to the International Space Station on June 25th. On a side note, I do love seeing crew go into and come out of the hatch, whether it's the side hatch or whether it is the docking port. I love seeing the smiles on their faces.
Yeah, it's going to be exciting for them once we open this Dragon side hatch. Again, it'll be the first breath of fresh air in about 20 days for them since they boarded the Falcon 9 on launch day.
And it is an interesting distinction. You launch in the Atlantic and you splash down the Pacific. It's very different breaths of air that you're getting.
And you traveled all over space for thousands of miles.
288 orbits, something like 7.6 million miles, all just to come down across the country.
Millions of miles, I should say. It's definitely a great passport to have.
It is. Maybe that could be the next memento that we can provide crew before they lift off as a passport that they can see.
I think the locations would be orbits.
That'd be really cool.
Outside of Earth.
Yeah.
Earth orbits, low Earth orbit. Again, next up, we are expecting the translation of the Dragon spacecraft named Grace, named by the Axiom-4 crew. Again, the spacecraft will translate in preparation for hatch opening and exiting of the vehicle.
A few moments ago, Core spoke with the AX-4 crew to let them know that the translation will be happening soon.
Dragon SpaceX, final checks are complete. Translation across the deck to the egress platform will begin shortly. There is a chance that we get a lot of alarms. No concern.
Dragon copies.
And we have movement. Translation is beginning. Some residual ocean water splashing down, and then we are washing down the hatch area. Again, just preparing for the vehicle's side hatch to be opened. Getting some of that salt water off, maybe some of that plasma from reentry off.
Right, all nominal processes to ensure that that crew can safely egress the vehicle, but also that ground personnel are safely protected while handling the spacecraft and crew as well. So at this point, we can see SpaceX personnel positioning themselves to support in this, as well as the spacecraft making final approaches to that upper landing pad for crew to egress the vehicle. After that freshwater washdown of the hatch area, we're seeing some final wipe downs as well. For those with a keen eye as well, you can see on the side of Grace, as it was making its approach towards the upper landing, the Axiom logo proudly displayed on the spacecraft. We had some great shots during the docking footage of SpaceX, Axiom, making a beautiful image of the vehicle docked to the International Space Station. It's a little worn.
A little toasty.
A little toasty.
A little toasty.
All part of nominal ops, though.
3,500 degrees Fahrenheit will do that.
Dragon, SpaceX, standby for side hatch opening and egress of some smiling faces.
Here we go.
All right, we're looking forward to it.
They are just about to open that side hatch. And again, first person that'll greet the crew will be the medical officer.
The hatch is open, and ground crews are making first contact with the Axiom-4 crew.
And you see that square looking tool, that's just a protector for the hatch seal for while the crew egresses. This is a reusable vehicle, so we are protecting both the crew as well as the spacecraft, making sure there's no damage that happens and that the crew doesn't bump their head on anything on the spacecraft. Looks like we're getting, the crew's getting some first photos.
Yep. That's a good sign that they had good initial comms with medical personnel. So this time we are now if you're just joining us, we're waiting for the AX-4 crew to egress or exit the Dragon spacecraft, also known as Grace, as part of the conclusion of their more than 20-day mission to the International Space Station.
You can see the crew is handing some of their cargo. That looks like their tablets that they use throughout their mission.
Making it a little easier for crew to make their way out of the spacecraft as well.
Looks like they just removed the footrests. Gives the crew some space to get out of their seats while they are exiting the vehicle.
Now getting some great internal views of the AX-4 crew in their spacecraft.
I already saw some big smiles as people we've all been saying.
As we wait for the AX-4 crew to egress the vehicle, you can see ground crew is still putting in aspects of I'm not going to call it rigging, but hardware to help the crew get out of the spacecraft more easily. Reminder that they've been in microgravity for a little over 20 days, and occasionally your first few steps back on Earth can be slightly challenging.
It's a little different in microgravity than dealing with the gravity here on Earth. Just now joining us, we are waiting for the AX-4 crew to exit the Dragon spacecraft Grace. Peggy, Shooks, Suave, and Tibor are at the end of their Axiom Mission 4. After 20 days in space, 18 on board the International Space Station. 18 days.
And now this wraps up a very significant portion of the mission, but it's not entirely over. We still have a few medical checks to go. And then in addition to that, the AX-4, all the research done on the AX-4 mission is all going to be in a world of post-processing, analysis, assessment, and that's all part of it, as well as crew debriefs. So, following after crew egresses, the spacecraft and gets good medical checks, at that point we'll be getting the crew back home and then continuing the final, we'll call it terrestrial-based operations of the
That's
AX-4
right.
mission.
I guess it's more of the end of the space-facing portion of the mission.
Operational phases. Right. We're still going to take our time to get there. You can see ground crews are still working with the crew members and hardware inside. They've established some ground support equipment to help in the aid of the AX-4 crew getting out of the spacecraft.
And some of their aids are not too complex. That white platform that you see there is essentially a slide.
Yeah. But an important one.
A very important slide.
But in addition to that slide, we do have, there's a complex tool that you mentioned earlier, Jesse, about protecting the seals. We can see now crew looking to make, the first crew members looking to make their egress from spacecraft along that slide.
Sliding out.
And there she is. We see Commander Peggy Whitson, all smiles, exiting the spacecraft Grace. That is a beautiful sight. Peggy Whitson, the AX-4 commander, is home, having logged 695 days in space on 5 flights. She is the 7th on the all-time list for most days in space by a human. It's an incredible feat.
Legendary. So far, we've had Commander Peggy Whitson exit the Dragon spacecraft. We are waiting for the remaining 3 crew members of the AX-4 crew. There's no real order to the egress. It's really up to the crew. So we're patiently waiting to see who's up next.
Right. If Peggy is in the indication, which I think she is for this particular crew, we'll see another big smile coming out of the Dragon spacecraft in a moment.
And we've got our pilot, Shubhanshu Shukla, as our second crew member exiting the spacecraft. And some big smiles, as you said. India reached a major milestone for the nation's space exploration goals. AX-4 pilot Shubhanshu Shukla became the first astronaut to fly from the country's newly established astronaut corps. His participation marks a vital step forward for ISRO's Gaganyaan program, which aims to send Indian astronauts into space aboard domestically developed spacecraft. Shukla's flight demonstrates India's readiness to execute international missions and reflects the country's broader ambitions to become a key player in the global space community. As India continues to expand its capabilities in crewed spaceflight, this mission serves as both a proving ground and a symbol of its commitment to innovation, collaboration, and leadership in space exploration.
Now, at this time, we are waiting for the mission specialists of the AX-4 mission, Sławomir Uznański-Wiśniewski of Poland and Tibor Kapu of Hungary, to now egress the Dragon spacecraft. We have our third crew member now egressing the vehicle. And there is Sławomir Uznański-Wiśniewski of Poland. Sław is all smiles for this, which I love to see. Now, Poland's participation in the AX-4 mission through the Ignis program marked a pivotal step in the country's growing role in space exploration. Astronaut Sławomir Uznański-Wiśniewski, flying in partnership with the European Space Agency, led a research agenda focused on some of the most pressing challenges in human spaceflight: mental health, artificial intelligence, and radiation monitoring. These areas are critical not only for ensuring astronaut well-being on long-duration missions, but also for enabling safe and sustainable exploration beyond low Earth orbit. The Ignis mission reflects Poland's strategic investment in cutting-edge science and its ambition to contribute meaningfully to the future of deep space travel. It also signals a broader shift in Europe's space landscape, where emerging space nations are taking on increasingly vital roles in shaping the next era of exploration. And based on that smile, I'd say Sław felt like he had a very successful mission.
3 of 4 crew members have exited the Dragon spacecraft. We're now just waiting for the final crew member, Tibor, to exit the spacecraft here. And last but not least, mission specialist Tibor Kapu. Hungary marked a significant milestone in its space ambitions with the AX-4 mission as astronaut Tibor Kapu became the first Hungarian to reach the International Space Station, and all smiles from him there. His participation under the banner of the Hunor Hungarian to Orbit program represents Hungary's commitment to advancing its role in international space exploration. This mission signifies the country's return to human spaceflight after decades and highlights its strategic investment in science, technology, and innovation.
And Jesse, it was wonderful seeing Tibor's smiles and waves and high fives. You knew how important this mission was to the crew as they were prepping for it and throughout the mission, and seeing them be able to egress with the same smiles that they went into the capsule with, or into the spacecraft with. Well, at this point, the crew is now safely back home on Earth.
Yeah. Now that our crew are safely back home on Earth and getting the first checks by SpaceX and Axiom space medical teams, we're going to wrap up our live coverage of their historic return. AX-4 AX-4 lifted off from Launch Complex from Launch Pad 39A at 2:31 a.m. Eastern Time on Wednesday, June 25th, and arrived at station on Thursday, June 26th. They spent about 20 days in space and 18 of those days on the International Space Station before undocking yesterday. And then this morning at 2:31 a.m. Pacific Time, they splashed down off the coast of San Diego, California. What an amazing journey it's been for them so far.
Yeah, it's been absolutely incredible. And Jesse, it's been fantastic again sharing desk with you. Thank you so much for joining me on this, and I'm glad we got to spend this time together. But now this cruise entire trip is home, we're ready to move on to the next phase of the mission. So to SpaceX, thank you for an incredible flight and taking such great care of our crew. To NASA, the International Space Station partners, and the Expedition 73 crew, thank you for helping make the efforts of the AX-4 mission possible. We're really looking forward to collaborating with everyone again soon. And a special thank you to ISRO, ESA, and Hunor for entrusting us with this mission. And to all of you watching at home, it's been an honor and a privilege to share the journey of Peggy, Shooks, Suav, and Tibor to space and back again. So as we bring this mission to a close, we celebrate how the AX-4 mission continues to demonstrate that the opportunities presented in microgravity have now grown to include more countries, more institutions, industries, and individuals than ever before. Through missions like this, we're redefining the pathway to low Earth orbit and building for beyond. So be sure to check out axiomspace.com to learn more about flight opportunities available along our journey to the world's first commercial space station. I'm John Rackham, and we're now signing off with a final welcome home to the crew of AX-4.
And I'm Jesse Anderson. Thanks to everyone for joining us on another successful mission to the International Space Station. Check out spacex.com/launches for updates and for the schedule of upcoming missions. And be sure to follow at SpaceX on X. And that'll do us for us here in Hawthorne. We'll see you on the next mission.
Welcome home.